What is wrong with the Sun right now? If you go to the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory website, you will see that the Sun is almost completely black. It looks extremely bizarre and not right at all. What is going on? This is an EIT 171 image. EIT 195. EIT 284. And EIT 304. Is it burning out before our eyes? Are massive flares about to be ejected from our fire giant? Or is this a natural occurrence? I personally have never seen it like this before, but I'm in no way an expert. I just hope NASA's scientists have an explanation. So it looks like the Mars rover Curiosity has found another strange object on the red planet. This time what appears to be an Egyptian statue on the side of a canyon. As you can see in this NASA photo, the statue is uncanny and clearly has eyes, a nose, and an elongated chin as seen in most Egyptian statues. It also has a different texture than the other rocks surrounding it, except for this rock over here that also looks sculpted. I'll place a link to the actual original photo in the description box below if you don't believe me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. First reported by UFOSightsDaily.com. The head of an alien statue has been seen in a photo taken by the Mars rover Curiosity. Let's take a look. This is insane, and I believe it is the smoking gun when it comes to proof of a lost civilization on the red planet. You can clearly see a huge eye. No slits. And what really blows me away is the mouth. It has teeth that cannot be disputed. Some will say this is pareidolia, but with those teeth, there is no way. I really don't know what else to say about it. It speaks for itself, almost literally. I'll leave the link to the original photo in the description box below. This story is flooding the internet today. A distant star with a very unusual flickering nature is stirring up a bit of a debate lately among the scientific community. Something was making the star dim drastically every few years, and astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, from Yale University, wasn't sure what it was. Some believe this flickering is being caused by an alien structure that surrounds the star. To fellow astronomer Jason Wright, a Penn State University researcher, it looked like the kind of star he and his colleagues had been waiting for. If none of the ordinary reasons for the star's flux quite seemed to fit, perhaps an extraordinary one was in order. Extraterrestrials. Or, to be more specific, something built by aliens, a swarm of megastructures, as he told The Atlantic, likely outfitted with solar panels to collect energy from the star. Both Boyajian and Wright believe the possibility of alien megastructures around the star is very, very remote. It's worthy of hypothesis, Wright told Slate, but we should also approach it skeptically. So, is this what we've all been waiting for? Finding out that there is a highly evolved alien race that have built a structure so big it surrounds an entire planet? Or is it something natural? Reported by the Inquisitor yesterday and apparently aired on national Chinese news on October 7th, an alien city was filmed over the city of Foshan in China. Thousands of witnesses stared at this bizarre phenomenon, which some described as ghostly as it appeared to be floating above the clouds. UFO sightings hotspot reported that the event lasted for only a few minutes before it disappeared. There were other reports that a few days later, people in parts of the province of Jiangxi also reported sighting a ghostly alien city in the sky. Some are calling this a mirage, while others claim it to be the work of Project Blue Beam. Or is it the government testing out their high-tech projection system? As always, you decide. Venera 13, meaning Venus 13, was a probe in the Soviet Venera program for the exploration of Venus. Venera 13 and 14 were identical spacecraft built to take advantage of the 1981 Venus launch opportunity and launched 5 days apart. Venera 13 on October 30, 1981, and Venera 14 on November 4. After launch and a 4-month cruise to Venus, the descent vehicle separated from the cruise stage and plunged into the Venusian atmosphere on March 1, 1982. After entering the atmosphere, a parachute was deployed. At an altitude of about 50 kilometers, the parachute was released and simple air braking was used the rest of the way to the surface. Venera 13 landed 950 kilometers northeast of Venera 14, just east of the eastern extension of an elevated region known as Phoebe Regio. The lander had cameras to take pictures of the ground and spring-loaded arms to measure the compressibility of the soil. The quartz camera windows were covered by lens caps which popped off after descent. These photos were top secret then, but now have been declassified. Leonid Kazanfomality, of the Space Research Institute of Russia's Academy of Sciences, a contributor to the Venera mission, suggests signs of life in the Venera images. Leonid said that in the image we can see a scorpion-shaped life form. Take a look. To me it looks out of place. It also looks like how we see microorganisms through a microscope. Leonid believes that in the images, a scorpion-shaped creature, a disc, and a black flap are visible moving in front of the onboard camera of the Venera 13. According to reports from a Russian news agency, Leonid explained in an article of the Russian journal Solar System Research magazine, they all emerge, fluctuate, and disappear. What if we forget about the current theories about the non-existence of life on Venus? He added, let's boldly suggest that the object's morphological features would allow us to say that they are living. American counterparts seem to firmly disagree with Kazanfomality, which of course they would. Why spill the beans about everything, right? Ted Strike, who is a photo analyst at NASA, says it is more likely that the disk Leonid is talking about could have come from the spacecraft. So do you think this is evidence of life? Or parts of the spacecraft itself? You decide. Reported to the MUFON database. It appears to be traveling quite fast. The uploader of the video said they thought it looked as if it were traveling at the speed of light. Let's take a look. Let's see it in slow motion while zoomed in. It does not appear to be a bird or a drone. The shape is very much like a disc, and it is without a doubt casting light from itself, indicating it is made of some sort of metal. This is truly remarkable footage here, and I leave it up to you guys to decide what you think it is.
Something unexpected is happening on the Sun, NASA has warned. This year was supposed to be the year of solar maximum, the peak of the 11-year sunspot cycle. But as this image reveals, solar activity is relatively low. Sunspot numbers are well below their values from 2011, and strong solar flares have been infrequent, the space agency says. The image above shows the Earth-facing surface of the Sun on February 28, 2013, as observed by the Helioseismic and Magnetic Imager (ME) on NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory. It observed just a few small sunspots on an otherwise clean face, which is usually riddled with many spots during peak solar activity. Experts have been baffled by the apparent lack of activity, with many wondering if NASA simply got it wrong. However, solar physicist Dean Pesnell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center believes he has a different explanation. This is solar maximum, he says. But it looks different from what we expected because it is double-peaked. The last two solar maxima, around 1989 and 2001, had not one but two peaks. Solar activity went up, dipped, then rose again, performing a mini-cycle that lasted about 2 years, he said. The same thing could be happening now, as sunspot counts jumped in 2011 and dipped in 2012, he believes. Pesnell expects them to rebound in 2013. I am comfortable in saying that another peak will happen in 2013 and possibly last into 2014. He spotted a similarity between solar cycle 24 and solar cycle 14, which had a double peak during the first decade of the 20th century. If the two cycles are twins, it would mean one peak in late 2013 and another in 2015. Single quote.
Hi everyone, this is Nibiru Watcher, watching the sunrise, and now this object is now at the 7 o'clock position. I'm going to catch it on time-lapse and regular video. Let's zoom in a little further on this. See it behind the trees, the lens flare over here. Let's zoom in on that. See, behind the trees. Oh my gosh, people. Let's get right with God. I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth. Are there spots on this thing? I'm not sure. The time-lapse can't zoom in on it. Let's go back to time-lapse. Hi everyone, this is Nibiru Watcher, observing this second object. See the trees in the background. I've been catching this on time-lapse. See if I can see the trees blowing in the background. What is that object? Is it Nibiru or its moon? And that black object, maybe this, it couldn't be Nibiru, it's moving too fast around the sun. Or is it? Wow. Let's see that black object inside. There's almost the center of this second object. Let me zoom out a little bit. Now I'm going to leave it just like that, actually. So I'm going to move the camera up a little bit. You can see the lens flare there. Put this, and zoom out. See the lens flare. I'm going to stop talking about the stupid lens flare. Let's zoom in on this one object. 12 times optical zoom plus digital zoom. Appears to be moving closer to the sun and rotating definitely counterclockwise. It should be tracking it all throughout the day. So surprised that they're letting us see this with no chemtrails this time. Clearly you can see the pine needles in front of this object. If you say lens flare, well, I've already left my piece with that. See if I can zoom in just a hair better. I don't know if I can zoom in any better. I'll leave it alone. Let's put a welder's filter in front of it. See what it looks like. Does seem to be too smooth of a round object to be a sun. It looked like Nemesis at first when it was low on the horizon, but since it's been following up with the sun, it's almost as fast as the sun is moving. Actually, it must be moving faster. Let me zoom back out a little bit. You can see our lens flare again here. Notice how the lens flare is coming from this object, almost like in my other videos. I wonder what that looks like as the sun shines through this object onto the Earth. Okay, I'm going to go back to time-lapse mode.
Shot of what this thing looks like. Not too impressive for the time being, but that is it. As I mentioned, it's the size of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, and the way we're able to observe this couple ways. We use these radio telescopes. This one happens to be in Puerto Rico. Kind of interesting to see. This one you have over here, the Goldstone, is actually from the Mojave Desert of California. This thing is so incredibly effective. It can actually get an object, take a peek at an object some 10 billion miles away from planet Earth. So pretty amazing stuff. Let me show you this animation that we have from NASA. And as we pop this up, you're going to get an idea. You'll see, of course, the Earth, which is right in the middle. Then you see that line that darts right through the screen. That is the path it's going to take. It is not expected to make contact with planet Earth, but I'll tell you, if it were to, strike, say, the ocean, the Pacific, the Atlantic, it could make an impact that would cause a 7.0 earthquake, or possibly at the same time create a tsunami that would be up to 70 feet in height and spread out about some 60 miles from its impact zone. So pretty interesting. Good thing is, again, not expected to hit planet Earth, but it's going to make another pass a little bit closer in the year 2092. I think we're going to be okay. Maybe your grandkids might have some issues, though.
Okay.
Maybe great-grandkids.
Thanks, Reynolds.
You bet.
Wow, you're thinking way far ahead.
Long term.
Happy Hour on this Friday, and joining me tonight is our chief producer Jenny Churchill and Evan McMorris Santoro, reporter and blogger for Talking Points Memo.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me, guys. Happy Friday. You know, we've spoken a few end of the world theories on the show before, especially when everyone thought that the rapture was coming, but the theories never died down, and especially because we haven't gotten to 2012 yet. And so now here's a new one that apparently people are just going crazy over online. Take a look.
Okay, look at the Earth distance, 1.812. Helios right now getting nearer to us by 300,000 miles per day. In about a week, that number is going to be 400,000 miles per day, and it's going to continue to increase. You're going to see more and more volcanoes going off. That's your sign to wake people up. You have 33 volcanoes erupting right now in the Earth, and that number is going to continue to go up as we move along in the timeline.
Vote on the news, and here's the winner. There's a huge hidden heavenly body right here in our solar system. Evidence is mounting that either a brown dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper, The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
It's been almost 10 years since little Pluto was demoted from being a planet, but today scientists from the California Institute of Technology have announced that they finally have solid evidence for a planet X, a true 9th planet on the edge of our solar system.
Is believed to be far beyond the orbit of Pluto, roughly the size of Neptune, with a mass 10 times that of Earth.
There are things out there, little icy objects that are orbiting in a funny way, and nobody was quite sure why. It seemed like there might be something with gravity pulling on them, but nobody quite understood. And finally, these scientists that you talked about took a really hard look at it, did simulations, calculations, and they came up with the explanation. It probably is this giant planet.
I think I read somewhere it orbits the sun every 10,000 to 20,000 years.
Right.
Is that why no one has seen it to this point?
No, that's not why. It's because it's so dim. It's so far away that even though it's big, it's very, very dim, and it'd be very tough to spot with a telescope.
I'm also fascinated at the idea that this planet could be so far out there and still our sun be the mass that is keeping it in the gravitational pull of our solar system.
Right, yeah, but no, it's true.
That's incredible. And so there was a thought at one point from scientists that when they thought that there was something beyond Pluto, that it might have been all the massive objects floating in the Kuiper belt, but it's not.
Right, so all those objects are out there and they have a lot of mass, and originally the scientists said, look, a planet is such a crazy idea, maybe it's the Kuiper belt itself that's pulling it on itself and making these orbits look funny.
And when we talk about the mass of this planet X, this 9th planet, being 10 times that of Earth, for those who are not scientists, what does that really mean, the mass of a planet versus Earth's mass?
Well, if you could put it on a scale, how much it would weigh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. And so it's bigger, it's bulkier, it's got more heft, it's got more gravity. It's this huge elephant in the living room, except we didn't know it was there.
You mentioned that scientists haven't seen it yet because of how far away it is and how dim it is. Is there a way for them to get visual evidence?
Yes, so the biggest telescopes in the world can theoretically see this thing if they're looking in exactly the right place. And with the publication of this new paper today, they are now going to start to look in earnest.
How much further out there is this planet X than the rest of the planets in the solar system? I mean,
so Pluto we think of as the really out at the very edge, the very farthest thing that you could call a planet, even though we don't anymore. And
I'm still supporting Pluto's right to be a planet.
But this thing is 5 times further out than Pluto.
Fascinating. Is there any chance it's not a planet?
No, there's always. It's very foolish to say no chance because you just don't know what you don't know. But the odds are looking very, very good.
60 billion miles from the sun.
Yep.
Amazing stuff. Michael Lemonick, thank you so much. Fascinating stuff.
Great, thanks.
Pluto, the sometimes planet, may be hiding a pretty huge secret. Well, two huge secrets, actually. Astronomers in Spain believe that hiding behind Pluto, obscured from our view, are two additional giant planets. Spanish scientists in Madrid discovered the potential for the two massive celestial bodies at the outer reaches of our solar system after studying strange patterns in the orbit of rocky objects around Pluto, including the newly discovered dwarf planet 2012 VP113. Scientists believe the first hidden world would be about 10 times the mass of Earth. They believe that this planet is moving in resonance with a bigger planet that is somewhere between Mars and Jupiter in size and would orbit 200 times the Earth's distance from the Sun. But can we ever conclusively confirm the existence of these two planets? Well, Scott Shepard at the Carnegie Institution for Science had this to say. As there are only a few of these extremely distant objects known, it's hard to say anything definitive about the number or location of any distant planets. However, in the near future, we should have more objects to work with to help us determine the structure of the outer solar system. So there you have it, time will tell.
Now, here's the asteroid story. An asteroid the size of the Rose Bowl, more than 1,000 feet across, fields its way toward the Earth right now. It'll come by first in 2029, and we'll see it up there. It'll be closer than our satellites, a thing the size of the Rose Bowl hurtling through the air. And then it comes again in 2036, and that's when it may get interesting. The debate over just how close it'll get is sparking some serious debate between Russian scientists and American scientists. Here's a satellite picture of the thing. This is from, well, with this and, you know, this tells you nothing. But you see it there? I don't know, that circly thing in the middle maybe? This was from 2004. It doesn't look very intimidating here. Both sides seem to agree that in 3 decades, the asteroid will fly very close to Earth. But Russian scientists warn that our planet's gravity could change the asteroid's path and set it on a collision course. NASA scientists say there is a minuscule, little bitty chance of that happening. 1 in 250,000. Better than winning the lotto, and somebody will. Joining us now, Michio Kaku. He's a theoretical physics professor at City University of New York, CUNY. He's also the author of Physics of the Future, and a new book coming out in about a month, and we'll tell you about that in about a month. So, good to see you. 2029, it flies by underneath the satellites.
That's right. Mark it on your calendar. Friday the 13th, April 2036.
Well, that's the second pass.
On the second pass, right? The first pass, like you said, it comes right underneath our satellites. You can actually see it whizzing right overhead.
Wow.
And on the second pass, it might actually be a nation buster. It'll take out Germany. It'll take out France, England.
Not England.
Right. Or the entire northeast of the United States.
Careful.
It'll hit with the force of 100,000 Hiroshima bombs.
Really? If it hits.
If it hits, right. It's a catastrophe beyond human comprehension. And the head of the Russian Space Agency has said that the Russian scientists should think of some ways of deflecting it or handling this menace in 2036.
What are we going to do? Shoot it with a laser?
Well, everyone thinks we'll send Bruce Willis out there with the space shuttle. But the space shuttle can't even reach outer space. We're phasing it out, and the space shuttle only spins wheels around the planet Earth. It cannot even go to deep space. We need a new booster rocket to take us out there.
Maybe China will build us one.
Maybe, and then we have to nudge it out of the way. The farther it is, the easier.
In our last video, we discussed how the Earth is experiencing an enormous increase in volcanic eruptions in just the past few months. And we also said that the numbers of earthquakes registering 6 or above on the scale has also risen dramatically at the same time. We also mentioned that those individuals living along the West Coast, and specifically in the region of the Pacific Northwest, should be preparing for a mega quake, followed by a massive tsunami of catastrophic proportions, as well as the probability of violent volcanic eruptions in their neighborhood. Now, we mentioned these scenarios not because we think it is going to happen or we believe it is going to happen, but because we are being warned by both seismologists and volcanologists that it is going to happen, just as it did occur 315 years ago in the year 1700. Now, it may be easy to dismiss this as just a coincidence in the timing of events, except for the realization that the events we are seeing unfold in this region, and for that matter across the globe, are getting progressively worse. And we have presented the scientific charts to you in our previous videos that argue this point, that the Earth is getting extremely unstable. Of course, it is just as easy to imagine a host of reasons why this is happening. We can say it's a natural occurrence. The Earth is going through a cycle of events. Or the sun is to blame for the increase in activity, which is exactly what agencies such as NASA and the USGS would want you to believe. But the evidence is suggesting that something more complex is causing these dramatic Earth changes. And that something, we believe, is a rogue system of planetary bodies that have entered into our own solar system and are presently creating havoc here on Earth. But if you have been paying attention to what is developing in the solar system, it is not only planet Earth that is being affected by the presence of these mysterious objects. It is virtually all of the planets in our solar system that are being affected in some manner or another. In fact,
in this installment of the weatherspace.com video edition, developments on Jupiter has transformed the appearance of the solar system's largest planet. One of the two main cloud belts on Jupiter has completely disappeared. Now, we're not talking about fading here, folks. It has completely disappeared. Take a look at these two pictures. They say it's a big event, but they're monitoring the system very closely, and they do not fully yet understand what is going on. Of course not. We don't know what's going on. We haven't lived for millions of years to see all this stuff that goes on with the planet. Something might be going on with the solar system that we don't know about. This picture shows before, August 4th, 2009. You see the belt, and then take a look at after, on May 8th, 2010. Look at that. The belt has completely disappeared. Now, what would trigger something that disappeared? In my opinion, it will probably be something to do with the weather patterns, probably the upper atmosphere messing around with the planet's clouds. But guess what? Now that doesn't stop right there. If it affects Jupiter, can it be a global event? They always say the sun controls the weather, so we might be looking at some kind of an event where maybe the Earth patterns might just change. The upper level pattern in the Earth just might change our climate over the next, maybe 20 years or so. But this is happening so fast. Before, in 2009, Jupiter had a belt. After that, now in 2010, it doesn't. Let's keep an eye on our own planet.
In fact, if you've been observant, you will have noticed that our neighbor planets of Venus, Jupiter, and Mars have been increasingly luminant. In other words, they've been much brighter in the night sky. Certainly much brighter than what I can recall as a young boy who was so fascinated in the stars and the planets. What other than another presence in our solar system, whether it be some sort of dwarf planet, a failed star, or a binary companion to our sun, that could cause these changes that are occurring not only in our solar system, but here on planet Earth. So, are governments across the world aware of its presence? Do they know exactly what is happening to our planet? And are they making preparations for what they expect or anticipate will take place? Have you heard about the program called Cascadia Rising? You probably haven't heard of this if you're one of those individuals who just relies on mainstream media for your news. But then again, you're probably not going to hear much about this from the cable news networks because it isn't in their best interest to let you know. Cascadia Rising is a large-scale disaster preparedness exercise that will be conducted by the government agency FEMA starting next week between June 7th and the 10th in the Pacific Northwest. So, of course, the question arises as to why an exercise of such significance is about to take place by a federal agency. Certainly an exercise that's going to be very expensive and time-consuming. Why conduct this if that particular agency wasn't concerned or even knew that something catastrophic or life-threatening was about to happen? Now, we are being told, according to the report, that this preparedness exercise will be conducted in such a way as to simulate a 9.0 magnitude quake along the Cascadia subduction zone, which quake would be followed by a tsunami that would create waves more than 50 feet in height. Okay, so think about that. 50 feet, that's approximately the height of a 5-story building, which by any means would be absolutely devastating to any type of structure or edifice which stands in its way. The drill will bring together local and state emergency responders, FEMA, and a number of military organizations and government first responders. The drill comes as a number of top scientists are warning the Cascadia subduction zone is a disaster waiting to happen. While most people have heard of the San Andreas fault line in California, very little attention has been given to the Cascadia subduction zone. But when compared to the San Andreas, the Cascadia subduction zone is a much larger threat and a more scarier threat than is the San Andreas fault. The Cascadia Rising Preparedness Drill will test plans that have been put together over the last couple of years. Plans that expects in the neighborhood, if not more than, 14,000 deaths, 30,000 injuries, and the complete devastation of the Pacific Northwest coast. According to planners, the quake could devastate the region for decades and could displace 1 million people from northern California to southern Canada. So, how bad could it get? Well, over 7 million people throughout the region could be affected by the Cascadia subduction zone. When the quake hits, the force is expected to cause liquefaction across large areas of the porous region. And in areas that aren't liquefied, the force of the quake could cause huge landslides, devastating destruction to thousands of bridges and buildings, and could cause as many as 30,000 avalanches in Seattle alone. Now, the following model, which we're going to show to you here in just a second, was created by the NWS Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, also referred to as PTWC. It's based off of modeling from an earthquake that hit the area on January the 27th of the year 1700, approximately 315 years ago, which caused a massive tsunami that actually struck the coast of Japan. So traveled for thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean. Now, officials are planning for a disaster unlike anything we've ever seen. The response will include the deployment of civilian and military personnel and will exceed anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. So think about that for a minute. Anything we've ever had to respond to as a country. What in the world could cause such a response by our government? So the response will be orders of magnitude larger than Hurricane Katrina or Superstorm Sandy. Now, this is according to Lieutenant Colonel Clayton Braun, who's with the Washington State Army National Guard. So here we have an immediate call to action from state and federal agencies that indicates there is an imminent threat to both life and infrastructure as a result of the instability of the region. But one thing's missing here. They fail to indicate in the report as to the rush to action here. Why is it so important that this be conducted at this time? What is the significance of conducting the exercise now, as opposed to, let's say, last year or the year before, or 5 years ago, or for that matter, 2 years from now? What is so important about this date? What is it that they seem to know that the rest of us aren't aware of or aren't being told about? Is it possible that they are preparing for what is coming our way from the dark regions of space? I first heard of Planet X in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 incident, when a lot of people were searching the internet to see if there was some sort of correlation between the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the prophecies of Nostradamus. It was during this time frame that millions of people were also searching Google to learn what they could about these mysterious rogue planets that could wreak havoc on the other planets in our solar system. Now, the likelihood of such an event occurring in our lifetime had for a long time been considered nothing more than a wild conspiracy theory. But now people were actually becoming genuinely concerned about its existence and about what effect it would have on our planet. In 2009, I interviewed a gentleman, J.R. Moore, who has a national radio show. In the interview, he indicated that he had spoken with some retired naval brass who were moving to the Ozarks for safety. So you say, why the Ozarks? Well, for one thing, the region is more than 1,000 feet above sea level, and thus it would be a safe location from rising waters, which is something that is expected to occur if we have a flyby of the Planet X system. Now, that interview was published on our YouTube playlist, and it's published under the title Nibiru, Truth, and the Global Warming Cover-Up. And I would encourage you to listen to it in its entirety, as it does tell us a very interesting story of what preparations the government is making, or has made, to get ready for the passage of the Planet X system. Now, Russia believes that this system exists, and they are presently building shelters in Moscow and throughout the country in preparation for its flyby. In the United States, preparations have been underway for many years in anticipation of the passage of the Planet X system. One of these massive underground facilities is believed to be located beneath the Denver International Airport, but it is off limits to both the public and the media as a top secret facility. There has also been considerable controversy revolving around the deaths or the mysterious disappearances of individuals in the scientific community who have become whistleblowers with regard to Planet X or a dwarf star in our solar system. Some of you may already know the story behind Dr. Robert Harrington, the chief astronomer of the U.S. Naval Observatory, who died before he could publicize the fact that Planet X is approaching our solar system. Many feel his death is part of a cover-up, one in which government agencies quickly moved to conceal the most earth-shaking discovery in history. So we are certain that the studies that Harrington was conducting in his quest to locate Planet X are very real. But whether he actually died from cancer or was silenced by the elite is still a question worth investigating today. Now, on the flip side of the coin, two reports were recently published by a news site called someonesbones.com. One of those reports states that in 2010, an ominous YouTube video posted by a user calling himself Nibiru Shock provided the world with the first substantiated images of the Nibiru system. These images, which are being shown here now, were reportedly substantiated by Marshall Masters, who is a former science features editor for CNN News and who is now a Planet X researcher who has a website which is yowusa.com. That's YOWUSA.com. The persona known as Nibiru Shock was reportedly proven to be Professor Ronald Jason Patrick, a scientist who worked at the Australian Astronomical Observatory, who apparently died in an airplane crash earlier this year. Now, the other report, and the one which has sparked a firestorm across astronomical and conspiracy theory internet communities, is the one that involves an individual named Dr. Ronald Shimshuk. Now, I have to admit that I have never heard of this individual, and very little is actually known about him, other than what is being reported on various alternative news sites. Now, he reportedly is an MIT graduate. His credentials include 7 years at McDonnell Douglas, 4 years employment at Boeing, and 3 at NASA. He also was employed as an astronomical consultant at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. Now, according to the alleged interview that was conducted with Dr. Shimshuk, he stated that the Nibiru system is very real, that it is essentially a solar system of its own which will intersect with our solar system. Now, at its heart is a brown dwarf star approximately 1/8 the size of our Sun. The brown dwarf is orbited by 7 planets or moons, some smaller than our moon and some larger than Earth. Of greatest concern is the 3rd planet of this system, which is several times Earth's mass with a nickel-iron core. It is predicted that this planet will pass within 0.3 AU of Earth, or roughly within 27 million miles of our planet. Now, a follow-up interview with this astrophysicist was supposed to take place with YouTube personality Steve Olson, but Dr. Shimshuk somehow mysteriously disappeared shortly into that interview. Now, we have been able to locate a website that has recently appeared on the internet that details who this individual is and contains a validated photograph of Nibiru, which is said to be the first substantiated image taken in the northern hemisphere, which we are showing to you here now. It is important to note that I'm using the term reportedly in referring to these articles because they can't be substantiated. We're uncertain of their authenticity or the accuracy of the report, and furthermore, I have been unable to find any credible information as it relates to either of these individuals that can corroborate their existence in any way or the information they are attempting to provide to the public. Another story that is sweeping the social media circuit, and one which, if true, could have been a deliberate attempt to inform the public, is one that involves Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. The report says the following: Queen Elizabeth stunned BBC production staff yesterday while preparing to deliver the Queen's speech at the state opening of Parliament, hinting that she is planning to abdicate the throne and flee the United Kingdom, a BBC insider claims. Quote, "One is making the necessary preparations to abandon ship," Her Majesty said. "A violent storm is coming, the likes of which Britain has never seen." Her Majesty was speaking to her advisors while taking on the Parliament robe of state and the imperial state crown in the robing chamber. However, she was already wearing a microphone, and her comments were heard by the whole gallery. She seemed angry that she had to remain neutral in her speech. She said there is solid intelligence from military top brass that if we don't Brexit, there is an inevitable World War III scenario that will play out, the insider said. World War II will seem like a bump in the road compared to this. I must warn my subjects, the Queen said. The line was cut off at this point, and BBC production staff were urgently addressed by the director, John Kirby. He said he had been warned by BBC executives that the head of state had been shooting her mouth off a lot lately, and that we must all ignore, forget, delete from our memories everything that we have heard from her. By warning advisors that she has made the necessary preparations to flee the country, is she hinting that she has inside information of the darkest kind? Of course, it is all speculation, more than likely coming from the British tabloids. But then we can't be too certain of that either, as the heads of state have been acting quite peculiar these days, sort of on edge and a bit uneasy, and yet we're not really sure of the reasons for their odd behavior. But until it becomes known to all, we can only wait it out. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this presentation. There is good reason to believe that the Nibiru Planet X system is entering into or nearing the inner solar system, which would place it somewhere between Jupiter and Mars, which is the outermost of the 4 planets which comprise the inner solar system. In addition to the tremendous numbers of volcanoes erupting in recent weeks, and the increased numbers of earthquakes greater than 6.0, which we already talked about in this video, there are a number of other reasons to consider in making this analysis. One being the tremendous increase in asteroid and fireball activity since the beginning of 2016, as this chart is showing you. If the Planet X system is approaching the asteroid belt, which is situated between Jupiter and Mars, then this could explain the influx in cosmic activity as of late, since the tail of this system will be thrusting these objects out of their normal orbit within the belt and outwards towards the Earth. The fact that the Earth's magnetic field is collapsing should be of great concern to us all, because it foretells of a pole shift that will punch holes in the ozone layer, destroy power grids, cause extreme weather events across the globe, and weaken our ability to fight the effects of damaging rays. The closer that the Planet X system gets, it's less likely that our magnetic field will be able to withstand its powerful influence on the Earth's core, resulting in a catastrophic flip of the poles. The most compelling reasons can most likely be seen in the following videos, which I'm going to present to you, which I believe are very convincing captures of the Nibiru complex within our solar system. Now, I would like to thank those individuals who were diligent in capturing these remarkable images and sharing them with us here on the social media sites. Now, this first video, which was posted in our video comment section, was captured in the Pacific Northwest and depicts what has been commonly referred to as 2 suns. Now, it's a very bright planet. We believe it is the innermost planet in the Planet X system, which revolves around Nemesis, the companion star to our sun. So take a look at this video. Now, in observing this video, you will see that this planet Helion moves with the Sun in a natural manner behind the clouds and is an object that generates its own light, thus ruling out any form of lens flare or atmospheric anomaly. There has been several observations of this planet in the past month, including this capture from December of 2015, as well as the live webcam capture of this large gaseous planet from São Vicente in Brazil in April of this year. The next video is one that I consider to be one of the most definitive captures of the Planet X system, as this panorama view taken in Alaska will show. In observing this video, you will notice that the webcam first records the setting sun, at which time another very bright object, possibly a binary dwarf star or companion to our sun, appears and also proceeds to set over the horizon, followed by a trail of smaller planetary objects in succession, a tail that has often been referred to as the string of pearls, which are now appearing in Skycam videos around the world. This is by all means an incredible capture and defies explanation. Now, when I say that the video defies explanation, it means that it would be very difficult for debunkers to claim that the objects of interest are just lens flare or sky anomalies or some sort of refraction or reflection coming from the web camera itself. As you can see from the video, our sun has already set below the horizon when the objects of interest begin entering into the picture as a separate light source, one after another in succession. Are you aware of the blue star Kachina? It has been appearing in the sky recently. In Frank Waters' writings on Hopi mythology, the blue star Kachina is a spirit that will signify the coming of the beginning of the new world by appearing in the form of a blue star. The blue star Kachina is said to be the 9th and final sign before the day of purification, described as a catastrophe or a world-engulfing cataclysm that will lead to the purification of planet Earth. As you can see in these recently published images, it seems the Hopi prophecy is coming to fruition, as in a short period a mysterious blue star or planet has appeared in the skies around the world. Last month, a strange blue star or planet was seen in the skies over Arizona, Spain, and in the British Isles. As you can see, they all appear to represent the same blue object. Hopi were instructed to tell of the great purification just ahead of the time when humankind would once again become highly civilized, tending to become careless and leading us to self-destruction. They said that along the way, the industrialized world will have certain problems. People will be uncomfortable because of the changing times, and they will have to make adjustments to find new lifestyles. It is said that after the appearance of the blue Kachina, the red Kachina, which is known to be the planet Nibiru, the outermost planet in the Planet X system, will come and will bring the day of purification. On this day, the earth and all life as we know it will change forever. It may be that the Hopi Indians were correct in their prophetic teachings about the purification of this world. Now, the last video we're going to present here was provided to Skywatch Media News in early March of this year by one of our Facebook followers. As you can see, there is a very clear capture of what appears to be the blue Kachina to the far right of the sun. Now, this video is very similar to the images that we just presented to you in this video.